So for those of you guys who have been part of my travel guide videos in the past, you know that the way I'm doing it these days is in the first part, I talk about just the general gay information. The second part, I give my own input in terms of how I like it, how I don't like it. One little change that's going to happen here is because in the past, people would always accuse me that I hate everything and why I even travel. So what I'm going to do from now on is in the part where I talk about what I personally like or don't like or whatever my opinion of the place, I'm going to break it up into the things I like, and then I'm going to talk about the things I don't like. That way, if in the future somebody accuses me of saying that I hate everything, I can be like, nope, I specifically said these are the things I like. Actually, if you watch any of my videos, I've always found positive and negative things in every place I've ever been, but people seem to really hone in and focus on the negative, even if overall most of it was positive. And then the third part is always like if I have like some random stories or something to tell, which nothing really exciting has happened here yet, so that won't be happening in this video. I got this hat today because I thought it would make me look nice and Russian, Ruski, but it's way too big. Alright, so stay tuned for part one. Hey guys, really quick, I decided I'm going to do a really mini review of St. Petersburg because I think it's really, really beautiful here. And I'm going to put that at the very end of the Moscow review. So first you're going to hear me say how the video is going to go, then I'm going to put this part in, then I'm going to do the Moscow review, then I'm going to do the St. Petersburg review, and then I'm going to do, like always, just some panoramic videos that you can see of what it looks like in these places. So if you're interested in St. Petersburg, then stick around for that. Okay, bye. Russia a gay travel destination? Absolutely no. And anybody who's been watching the news lately has seen that actually Russia has kind of done a backwards movement in terms of gay rights as of late. I actually announced that I was going to come to Russia a couple of months ago, and I was actually expecting a lot of people to give me negative feedback for it, because they were going to say like, oh, you shouldn't support Russia, all this kind of stuff. A lot of even celebrities came out and said they're not going to go to Russia. A lot of gay Olympians didn't come to Russia for the Winter Olympics because they said they wouldn't do it. And I told you guys months ago that I was going to come to Russia anyway, because honestly I thought about it for a minute if I was going to feel guilty about it, and I don't. Because as I said in the video months ago, that if I didn't go any place where gay people were not readily acceptable, then I really couldn't travel hardly anywhere in the world. And my plan is to travel most of the world, so it is what it is. I've already traveled to plenty of other places that are not gay friendly. So that's out of the way. Having said that, Russia has a relatively small, or I should say Moscow. I review cities, I don't review countries. Moscow has a relatively small gay scene. There's a couple of bars and clubs, but there's no gay district that I could ascertain. There's not enough gay venues for there to be specific clubs for, like, if you go to cities that are really gay friendly and very gay accepting, you'll find that there's like even clubs that cater to specific things, like if you like bears, if you like twinks, or if you like Asians or whatever. Here there's not enough of them to really even do that. And the places that I found seem to be the most popular are the 911 Cafe and a place called Propaganda, which I thought was a really funny name for a gay club, especially in Russia. There's also in the river, along the river in Moscow, there's like a hangout, I guess, in the summer where there's like nude sunbathing and stuff, and that's frequented by gays. And that is called Silver Forest. So you guys can check that out if you're into that kind of scene. And oh, one more thing that I thought was really interesting. In Russian clubs and gay bars, you're not allowed to take pictures, or there's no cameras allowed, just because there is such a chase on gay people here. they don't allow you to take pictures inside because people could really, their lives could be ruined and all this kind of stuff, that those pictures somehow ended up on mass media and somebody found out at work or something like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. However, unlike in Turkey, all the online apps and websites are not blocked. So like when I was in Turkey, like you couldn't get into Scruff or Grindr, all those things were blocked, like you couldn't even get in. But you can do that here in Russia. The one thing I was going to say is so like I said, there's not an official gay district, but most of the gay clubs are, I'm going to show you the name because I cannot pronounce it. And I actually took a little video of that street as well, so you guys can kind of see it there again. But there's a street, this is the name. Will my camera focus? No. I will spell it Tverskaya. So the vast majority of the gay clubs and bars are along that street right after you get through the Red Square. And along that street is where you find... So I'm not saying it's a gay street. I'm not saying it's part of a gay district. But that's just where the majority of them are. So I think that would be a good starting point. Other than that, there's really nothing to tell about. I would say it's not gay friendly. I wouldn't say you're safe having PDA here, public display of affection. But then I also have to say I really haven't seen a lot of that even between straight people here. So maybe that's just something within Russian custom that's just not really accepted. So yeah, that's really all I can tell you guys. If you do come here, be safe. Oh, that's something else I was going to say that I think maybe a long time ago I should have added in my videos is I found something that's really interesting is I find that there's certain countries where there seems to be a lot of gay men who identify as tops, and then there's other countries where the majority of gay men identify as bottoms. And then even sometimes within certain cities, there's like a predominant amount of men who identify as tops, and then other cities like Moscow, I find predominantly most of the gay men here identify as tops or verse top, which is really funny because then like on the opposite side, Barcelona is all bottoms. Everybody's a bottom. All the tourists are bottoms. All the people who live there are bottoms. If you go to Barcelona, you're a bottom. So I don't know, maybe I should start putting that into my blog because I think that's kind of a funny thing that happens, and I'm wondering culturally why that happens. Because like I said, there even seems to be certain countries where you find a lot of people identify as tops, and you find other countries where people predominantly, and that makes me wonder if there's something in terms of how people are raised and culture that makes you feel more one way or the other. Anyway, going on to part 2, so stick around for that if you're interested in my general review of Moscow, if I think it's worth visiting in general, or if you only came for this part, then you can turn the video off. Those of you who are interested in just my general review of Moscow, I had to take that hat off. It was like a cheapy hat that I bought. It was like as a joke. I can wear like tomorrow while I visit the Kremlin. Or maybe not because it's super uncomfortable. So, okay, like I said, first I'm going to talk about the good things, and then I'm going to talk about the bad things. So nobody can tell me that all I do is talk negative stuff. Good things. I'm loving like all the churches in Russia. I specifically really love the old wooden ones. They have a lot of like really old wooden ones, and those are so beautifully built, and the architecture and the inside and all this kind of stuff is gorgeous. And I love I even like, and then the other churches that Russia is known for. In German we call it Zwiebeldom because it's shaped kind of like an onion. I don't know what the English term is for that kind of architecture on the churches, but that is really beautiful. A lot of history here. I think that's really amazing and really interesting and beautiful. And I gotta tell you, I love Russian food. I love it. I love cabbage, and the Russian food is very heavy on cabbage. Very heavy on cabbage. And I love cabbage, so that's good. Also, the Russian food is very heavy on fish. And I love fish. So, What else is really good? And it's very cheap right now. That's another really good thing. I've actually been here for 2 days already, and I haven't even spent. I think I spent like $60, which is like not very much at all. And that's like going to 2 museums, a 3-day metro pass, eating, everything. I paid $60. Oh, and getting some souvenirs and stuff like that. So it's actually really cheap right now. I know that's not good for the Russian people, but that's very good for me. Yeah. So the negative things. The first thing I gotta say is the Russian people I don't know, this is probably just a thing that has to do with cultural, but nobody smiles. Everybody looks like they wish the other person was dead. There's no smiling, there's no friendliness. It's just like everybody looks like they're pissed, like somebody just died. Like it's kind of off. Like I find that a little bit off-putting because I'm just somebody who's always smiling and how are you doing, all this kind of stuff. And I think they're also very, very like oof, you know. And that coming from a German saying that somebody else is really like oof, that's saying something. I will say that, you know, if I approach them and I ask them for help, they've always been really friendly and they've tried to help out. But just overall, they're very, like, standoffish. And I haven't seen any men here with long hair, and I definitely haven't seen any men with dreads here. And this is not just specifically to Russia, but in a lot of countries where diversity among the people is generally frowned upon, it's always a little bit uncomfortable for me traveling. And even like today, like two or three grown men were kind of like, they saw me and they were kind of like, and they were like laughing. And I generally don't care what people think about me, but at the same time, it's really weird to me that, especially when, and I get this in several of my travels, that like grown men will like kind of laugh and snicker and all this kind of stuff. And it's just really, when this mentality is very weird to me. It's kind of like, oh my God, look, somebody who looks different is from us. Hee, how funny, someone is different. I mean, like, is that, like, what exactly goes through those kind of people's mind? It's like, oh my God, someone's different. How could you be different? I mean, it's really weird. I would say it's generally grown men who act that way. I mean, a lot of kids sometimes will stop and stare as well, but they generally, that's a positive thing. They're kind of like, oh, Rastaman, cool, whoa, you know. But I would say 85% of the time it's like grown men who act really childish about diversity. And that's happened to me here already like 2 or 3 times now, and I find that a little bit uncomfortable. Especially since I don't even think of myself as looking all that alternative. Like, all I have is dreads. Like, other than that, I don't feel like I look alternative. The other thing that is, so this is not, this is not necessarily a negative or a positive, but in Russia, very, very few people speak English. Now, I know this is already a lot of people are already gonna like freak out because there's, you know, people are gonna say, well, you're in their country, so why should they have to speak English? And I think that is a very, very valid argument. And it's something I can respect. People's like, they're like, well, you're in our country, why should we speak English? The thing is, we live in a interconnected world these days. The world is not as big as it used to be. Every country is somehow connected to another country in terms of trade and all kinds of stuff like that. And it just so happens that English is considered the world language. I mean, like, for all I care, Russian could be the world language, or Chinese, or I don't know, whatever, who cares? But I think it's important that everybody speaks one language. In the long run, for the world to continue developing, and it just makes sense that everybody would speak a language. It doesn't have to be English. It just so happens that it's English. I mean, like, I don't know who decided. It wasn't me. I don't really care. It could be Swahili for all I care. But I think it's important that people, and even if the people don't speak it, I think it's very, like, the museums here, the signs weren't translated into English. And I'm not gonna lie, like I found that kind of annoying because I paid to get into 2 museums, and I basically was like, okay, that was wasted money because I couldn't read a single sign. I had no idea what I was. I mean, like in general, I had no idea what I was looking at, and I was kind of like, that I thought was a little bit stupid. And the last negative I have is Moscow is not pretty. And I always get in trouble for saying this thing, but it's not a pretty city. I think if you stay right around the Red Square, that's kind of the historic area, there's still a lot of like old churches and stuff that are very, very beautiful. But right outside of it, it's not pretty. Like, it's just all these very, I call them communism buildings. Like, it's just not even like super high rises, but just blocks of like buildings with apartments in it. It's not pretty. It doesn't really have any character. So, do I recommend Moscow as a travel destination in general? No, honestly, no. I think it was really pretty to see the old wooden churches, and I'm not gonna lie, like I was really excited to go into St. Basil's church because I love churches. I don't know if you guys have noticed that in any of my other travel blogs. Like I spend most of my time always just looking at the churches and the mosques and the synagogues because like usually those are the oldest buildings that have survived because during war times they're not destroyed or anything like that. So you really get the sense of the culture and the history, and I generally find those beautiful. But other than that, I don't think there was really anything in Moscow that I think is worth seeing. Mind you, I am still going to St. Petersburg. I don't know if I'm going to do a review of St. Petersburg because I'm not there that long. But I've heard really, really good things about it. I've heard that it's a really beautiful city. So we'll see, and then maybe I'll see if I recommend that. So hopefully you guys are doing well. Leave comments, especially if any Russian gay people watch this and you guys have anything to add, please do put it in the comments because I'm finding it very hard to get anything out of anyone because nobody seems to want to talk. So that's it. Thank you, and talk to you guys later. Bye. Alright, St. Petersburg gay travel destination is also a no, just like Moscow. Russia altogether is not necessarily that high on the list of gay travel. I will say though, St. Petersburg is much more liberal than Moscow is. It's much more culture, it's much more lively, there's a lot more going on. So in that sense, I think it's definitely more so, I would say. But at the same time, they only have a really small handful of bars. I actually had the chance to meet with a local guy, and we had like a long talk. It was really nice. And he was telling me that there's only 3 gay clubs in all of St. Petersburg. And they're nothing like crazy special. One of them's called Central Station Bar. And I guess that's like a really popular hangout. I mean, if there's only 3 bars, you're probably not going to have a lot of choices. Also, there's outside of St. Petersburg, there's a gay beach, and I'm totally going to butcher this name again. It's called Sestoretsk. Sestrorretsk. Yeah. So that's probably something you can check out in the summertime. There's no gay area. There's nothing like that. Just like as in Moscow, they just don't have it. There's just not. And what I did forget to mention, in Moscow at least, there's, probably at least 15 clubs or so, bars, clubs. There's like some gay saunas and stuff like that. And from what I've been told, none of that exists in St. Petersburg. So I think, again, it's going to come down to, like, meeting people online, maybe cruising. I wasn't able to... I will say it's much more flirtatious. I had a couple of guys here, like, give me the winky wink and the flirting and stuff like that, but I couldn't tell you if that was because I was in a cruisy area or just because, I don't know, whatever. Oh, but to go really quick on the Moscow video, there's this one guy who told me who travels to Moscow regularly. He's a viewer of mine, and he said he would let me know what the cruising areas are for Moscow. I don't have internet in this hotel, so I haven't been able to check. But once I find out what those are, I'll put them in the notes for those of you guys who are interested. Yes. So, so that's all I really can tell you guys about gay scene. I wasn't in St. Petersburg long enough to really do more research on it. I'm sorry for that. But I did really want to talk about it really quickly because Moscow and St. Petersburg are like day and night. I already mentioned that Moscow, I was not a fan at all, really. Outside of right around the Kremlin, Moscow is not pretty. It's all very... I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of architecture you think is pretty, but it's the architecture of Moscow is like pretty much all just that Soviet Union style. Everything is built like a block, kind of a multi-apartment building kind of things. There's not very much historic stuff. I also felt like the people in Moscow were a lot less friendly, much more suspicious. I got a lot more weird looks. Like I said, St. Petersburg is way more liberal. It's really beautiful. There's a lot of like really old historic stuff going on here. I really, really like it here. Like I think it's really beautiful. And way more people here speak English. Again, like I know people are going to be like, why should they have to speak English if you're in their country? I already talked about that earlier in the video. But I have to say it's still not very tourism friendly. And I don't know, depending on what country you're coming from. For me, it was also not very easy to come here as a tourist. You know, the visa requirements were like insane. And not insane, but I mean, it's definitely doable. But I think a lot of travelers are going to be like, I could just easily go somewhere else and it'd be really laid back, then have to deal with all this, and then get to a country and they're not really travel friendly. And what I mean by that is, like I said again, there's no signs in English. Today I went to see Catherine's Palace in Pushkin, which is maybe like half an hour outside of St. Petersburg, and it's also very, very beautiful, and it's definitely a recommendation if you do decide to come here. But when I arrived in the town of Pushkin, there was no signs that were like, okay, walk in this direction to get to the castle or anything like that. And I'm kind of used to, in countries, even if it's not like a lot of people speak English, like in Spain, a lot of people also didn't speak English or chose not to speak English, even though maybe they did. There was always like signs in the cities that pointed in the direction of the things that tourists would be interested in, like the main sites. And in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, they don't have that at all. Like they're just kind of... I got lucky because I was actually starting to walk in the wrong direction. And I saw a bunch of school children walking in the other direction. And I kind of just went with a hunch and was like, okay, they're probably going to go to that castle as like a school field trip. And I got lucky and that's where they were going. Otherwise, I don't even know how long it would have taken me to circle around trying to find that place. Yes. But it is, like, you know, it is very, very beautiful. I wish I would have done it differently. I wish I would have done more days in St. Petersburg and just a few days in Moscow. Because Moscow, honestly, you can see everything. You probably could see everything within one day that there's worth seeing there. Moscow, I think, would have been nice to have at least 3 full days. So, especially like the Alma Taj Museum, I didn't get to see it all. I was in there for 4 hours, and then my head was just ready to, like nothing was going to go in anymore. My head was just like, oh my god, I'm on overload. So, yes. And in terms of what I recommend from this trip, I definitely recommend St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. there's a monastery, the monastery of Novoreski. I'm hoping I'm saying that wrong. I've made a little video of it, so you'll see it later if you guys watch the rest. Those are the two things I really, really recommend in Moscow. The Kreml, I was a little bit disappointed in it. I think, you know, if you're gonna go and do the trip, it's not that expensive. At least I know for Russians it's expensive but by euro or dollar standards, it's pretty cheap. Everything's pretty cheap here. So, yeah, you might as well go ahead and do it. But maybe I thought it was going to be different than it was. And St. Petersburg, St. Isaac's Cathedral, Alma Taj, that whole area around there. The church on the spilled blood. It's pretty, but I liked St. Basil's in Moscow better. Yeah, it's still pretty. I would say it's worth taking a look. And then just generally walking around in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is like a mix between like parts of Manhattan, Venice, and maybe Paris. And it's kind of like this weird mixture of the three. It's really pretty because they have like in Venice, they have a lot of like riverways and bridges and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of the historical stuff like in Paris. And then Manhattan just kind of like that. A lot of the, maybe kind of like Soho in Manhattan, it kind of reminded me of, like the shopping districts and stuff like that. So, and at the same time, it's still a little bit run down, and I think maybe for some people that's weird, but I actually like that. One of the things I really liked in Havana was the fact that everything was run down, because I feel like it kind of gives the place a type of charm that I like when it's not completely pristine. Oh, and before I forget to mention this, because I always make a point out of saying in some other videos, I'm also very happy with Russia. I think it's very clean, big city standards. I mean, obviously, my friend in Germany, she's Russian, she was like, oh, Moscow is not that clean, you're probably going to be disappointed. And I actually thought Moscow was pretty clean. I think a city with 15 million people, you can't expect to be able to eat off the ground. That's not realistic. But considering the size of these cities, I think they're fairly well, there's good upkeep. The food is really delicious in Russia. I'm really, really loving the food. But one of the big critiques though is horrible coffee. Horrible coffee. And the milk is not good. You guys know that I'm like addicted to milk. And I was disappointed in the milk, and I was really disappointed in the coffee. So I ended up having to do Starbucks. And I know some people are like, yeah, you go to a different country and you drink Starbucks. And I'm like, yes, I had to drink Starbucks here. Because literally the Russian coffee was really bad. So, is there anything else I want to say that I'm going to forget? Yeah. And just because I know I'm going to get asked, it's funny because I think I mentioned this in one of my other videos once before. I've noticed that there's countries where there seems to be where the women are more attractive than the men, and then there's other countries where the men are more attractive than the women. There's very few countries where I think there's a balance where there's equally amounts of attractive men and women. Personally, I think Russia has more attractive women than it does attractive men. But that's maybe... A lot of Russian men really walk around like neo-Nazis. That's the way they look to me, and I find that a really unattractive look. Whereas in Russian women, they really embrace their femininity, maybe almost a little bit too much. A lot of them walk around and it's kind of like, that skirt really doesn't have to be that short. But yeah, I always find that really fascinating how that dynamics happens. So, yes, but I love it. I think it's so pretty. And honestly, Paris can suck it. I don't know, I've never been a Paris fan, as you guys know. I've never understood people's obsession with Paris. Yes, it is pretty, but it's so overrated. And then I come to a place like St. Petersburg, and it's so beautiful. Oh, and now I remember the other thing I was going to say again. there's so few tourists. I know in some of my videos you're gonna see that because it was like that same like group of, there's like two Asian travel groups that like everywhere I went they would be there, and so it kind of looked like there was a lot, but honestly it was like practically empty everywhere, and I like that. And one of the things that really for me like kills Paris, besides the fact that I think the Parisians are like complete barf bags, I also, it's just, there's just way too many tourists. Way too many tourists. There's just no legitimate natural culture anymore. And if you want to have real French culture, you have to pay up the wazoo for it. I don't know, I'm just not a fan of Paris. Like, skip Paris and come to St. Petersburg. It's really, it's cool, and it's really just still an authentic experience. So, loved it. Yeah. If you guys have any if you have any feedback, if you're Russian and you're watching this, I'm always asking people from the countries that I travel to, if you guys have feedback in terms of things to do or more information for gay, please put it in the comments or in the notes. Well, not in the notes, you don't have access to the notes, but to the comments, so that can always help other people who might still be considering traveling here. So hopefully you guys are all doing well, and I'll see you back when I'm in Germany again with my next angry video. All right, bye. Hey you guys. So we are walking towards the Church of Ascension, or the Church of Christ Ascension, in southern Moscow. That is it right here. Where's my finger? It's also an UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I gotta tell you guys, I know it sounds really cheesy, especially coming from somebody who's not religious whatsoever. I can never get enough from looking at old churches and mosques and synagogues. I just find them all to be so beautiful. And hopefully I can go inside. And here's a view of the park. Today is April 1st, and I thought it was cold in Germany, but it's freezing here. I definitely did not pack warm enough. Alright, one more time, a little bit of a closer up. Can't fit it all in at once, but this is the Church of the Ascension. Built in the 1500s. And the bell tower. And this is the main gate that leads into the Tsar's palace. Hey YouTube! So here we are in Red Square. This is the famous shopping mall. And then St. Basil's Cathedral, which I'm very psyched to go into now. It's probably what drew me the most to Moscow. And the Kremlin, or Kreml, I don't know, depends on, I've heard different ways of pronouncing it. And then over here is the museum I'm also going to be going into after, and that is the main gate of how to get in. Where's my finger? Oh, right here. So very excited. Oh, that guy's kind of cute. Hey you guys, so I just wanted to show you, this is the street that has most of the clubs and bars on it. I'm going to keep heading up this way. As I already said earlier in the video, I'm not claiming that this is like a gay area or a gay street. It just happens to be the street that most of the clubs and bars are on. And I'm going to zoom into the name one more time, but I'm not going to try to pronounce it. And it's actually right across from the Red Square. Hey guys, we are now at the Novodevichy Monastery. Very, very beautiful, as all of the churches and stuff have been so far. This is a little bit of outside central Moscow, but definitely worth a trip out to see. Hey guys, so I wanted to give you a quick 360 inside the Kremlin. Or Kreml, I don't know, I've heard different ways of saying it. I'm really loving all these churches. And I just remembered another positive about Russia that I forgot to put in my video earlier, and that is very, very few tourists. Now you're seeing all of these people right here, and you're thinking, what is he talking about? But that's just those Asian travel groups. For some reason, Asians love to travel in these groups of 20 or 30 people. But overall, very few tourists in Moscow, which is awesome. Because as some of you guys might already know, tourists are the worst type of human being on the planet. They're rude, they're pushy, they think everything is owed to them. Yeah. I'd like to think of myself as not one of those types of people. So yeah, here it is. Alright YouTube, you gotta watch out. In Russia they have the homo scan. I guess that happens before you go into the subway. We are now in St. Petersburg, and I have to tell you, it is such a far cry from Moscow. This place is gorgeous. And we're about to go to this church right here. Oh, I can't wait. So beautiful. I wanted to give you guys another 360 of the incredibly gorgeous St. Petersburg. This is the Alma Taj Museum we're going to be going into in a second. This is the Alexander, well, not pole, what's the correct word? Column. And this is the, totally going to pronounce this wrong, Dvorskoye place. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Look at this, you guys. Look at how gorgeous St. Petersburg is. I love it. Hey you guys, we are at Catherine's Palace. As you guys just saw, it's under construction right now. But when that's over, I'm sure it's going to be incredibly beautiful once again. If anybody who's like Chinese watches this, can you guys tell me why you guys travel in these huge groups of people? So yeah, under construction. But still the parts that aren't are really pretty. You guys can see there's like a cathedral behind these trees. I'm doing a bad job. Okay, I'm walking more into trees right now. Yeah, oh, it's right behind there.